you are behaving in the same way that he is that you don't like. In other words, his behavior towards you puts a damper on what it is that you would like to do. Your reaction to his behavior is exactly the same as his behavior. And if you could shift that into something else, which would be a place of being able to ignore that, which is what Lao Tzu advises, just simply, he just says 3 words, you ignore it, you ignore it, you ignore it. If you were able to do that, if you were able to just say, this is who he is, this is what he does, and it has absolutely nothing to do with me. I'm only making it have something to do with me so that I can have someone to be mad at, or I'm now going to be putting a damper on his thoughts, which are not realistic either, and I'm going to accuse him of that, and back and forth you go. If you could just be accepting and honoring and loving of that and thanking him for the water that he is pouring on your plans, and then proceed with your plans, the water would stop coming. It truly would. The only reason that what I'm trying to get at is the reason that he does that isn't realism, isn't that he's saying you're not realistic. The reason that he's doing that is because it works, because it gets to you. He wants to be able to get to you. He wants to be able to feel superior. He wants to be able to feel and talk like a dog, which I just heard him do. And if you could just get that and grasp it, all of that behavior would begin to stop. You are getting mad at him for being mad at you. You are getting frustrated with him for being frustrated with you. You are assessing him to be unrealistic because he's calling you unrealistic. In other words, his low energy isn't what drags you down. It's that you are copying it. You are imitating it. It's called mimetics. You are allowing yourself to behave in exactly the same way he does. If you could just send him love and ignore that and just move on and say, there you go again, you're so good at that. It reminds me all the time of how great I'm going to be and what I want to be able to do. I often give thanks to all of the people who poured cold water on so many of my dreams throughout my life. And there were many, even in my own family. And I thank them for doing that because it's what taught me how to ignore that and to move on and do what I knew in my heart was the thing that I was going to do. And it had absolutely nothing to do with him. And you're not succeeding would be because he's right? Or you're not succeeding would be because you have bought into his point of view and acted on it.
Okay.
So if you stop in other words, if I always use the example I used to use with my kids when I was counseling in a high school many, many years ago. What if he came home tomorrow and said, yesterday you weren't going to be able to be successful because you're not realistic. Today I've decided that you're a car. I want you to get down on all fours, and I bought a funnel home. I'm putting it in your ear, and I've got some gasoline. I'm going to pour this into your ear. And you say, wait a second, what do you think you're doing? You say, wait, well, you're a car today, so I've got to fuel you up. And what would your reaction be to him telling you that you're a car? Whatever it is, you ought to have the same reaction to him saying, you can't be successful at a home business or whatever it is that you would like to. You ought to have the very same reaction to that. This is just too absurd for me to even give it any attention. I just love you for your fantasies about all of the things that are possible and not possible for me to do because you happen to be married to me, but they just happen to be fantasies. They're just your fantasies. I mean, that's your thinking process. And you just move on with what it is that you have to do. And if he starts to then interfere, and that's when people sometimes get, abusive, or they get nasty, or they get mentally, interrogative and things like that, then you just move on in that relationship. But you don't want to make them right, and you don't want to act the way they're acting, which is exactly what you're doing. What you think of me is none of my business. It doesn't mean that you're nasty, that you're bad, or that I'm judging you. It's just none of my business what you think of me, and if you're not there to support me and be, then I understand that you can't do that, but I'm very busy right now making my home business work. And you know what? This man will respect you more for that, especially if you do it in a kind way. Be kind to the unkind, because kindness is your nature. It's just, you teach people with behavior, and you get treated in life the way you teach people to treat you. You have taught him to treat you this way. He's not doing that because he's a mean, no good bastard. He's doing that because you have taught him this is how you are, what you are willing to accept. Once you teach him something different, he won't behave that way. Once you internally know that you are not going to allow his dampening behavior to affect you any longer, and you're going to smile your way through it and love him through it, it'll all come to a halt almost instantaneously. It's just amazing. You can't pick a fight with someone who's not interested in fighting. They just give up after a while. It's just not worth it. Even if they start slapping you around, and if you're just not interested in fighting and being peaceful,